Hi first graders! Today we are going to continue reading from The Adventures of Spider by Joyce Cooper Arkhurst, illustrated by Jerry Pickney. Today's story is called Why Spiders Live in Dark Corners. Spider lived in a house made of banana leaves with his wife, Aso, and his 2 sons. Behind the banana leaf house was a garden. In the garden, Spider and his wife and his 2 sons planted yams and corn and tomatoes, bananas and lemons and oranges. When the rain came every year, the garden grew beautiful, and Spider and his family had plenty to eat. Every day, Aso cooked rice and vegetables and meat and peppers into a big stew. It was delicious, and Spider ate until he could eat no more. You might have thought Spider would be satisfied, but of course he was not. He wanted to have even more good things to eat. I'm afraid he wanted to eat most of the time when he was not sleeping. What can I do? Spider asked himself. There are so many good things in my garden, and yet I can eat only half of them. I wish I could think of a way to have more. So Spider sat in his garden and thought. At last he had an idea. He told his wife he was not feeling very well and that he was going to see the village magician. The magician knew many things and could tell what would happen next month or next year. After a while, Spider returned, and when Aso asked him what had happened, Spider told her that the magician said he was very sick and that very soon he would die. Aso and her sons were sad, but Spider only said, "Since I am going to die soon, you must make a place to bury me. I want you to put it here just next to the spot where the tomatoes are growing." For Spider loved tomatoes best of all. When Aso had dug a deep hole for Spider's burial place, Spider said, "Now I want you to put in some spoons and knives and forks and some cooking pots so that I can feed myself when I am in the next world." And so Aso and her sons put spoons and forks and knives and cooking pots into the grave. One day, very soon after, Spider pretended to get sick and die. He lay very still and closed his eyes and tried to stop breathing. Aso and her 2 sons shed many tears and put Spider in his grave just beside the tomato patch. Spider stayed in the deep grave for several days because his family had a fine funeral and many people came to mourn for him. They brought food and sang funeral songs and played the funeral drums. When it was over, Spider sat up happily in his grave. He did not mind spending the day there because he loved to sleep anyway. And when night fell, can you guess what Spider did? Very quickly, he lifted the cover of the grave. He looked about to make sure that everyone was in bed, and when he saw that all was safe, he crept out very slowly. Sometimes the moon was so bright that Spider could see everything in the garden. He quickly picked several of the very best tomatoes. Then he pulled up some of the best yams. He cut off some green, juicy peppers and pulled up a few big onions. Then Spider crept into the chicken yard and plucked himself a nice fat chicken. When he had everything he wanted, Spider went back to his deep grave. He cooked a grand feast and ate all night long. Now, it was not long after that Aso and her sons began to notice that something was happening to the garden. Every morning, some of the best tomatoes and yams were missing. They wondered who could be stealing from their garden. So Aso thought of a clever way to catch the thief. She brought a great pile of straw. Out of this, she built a man that looked just like a real man. Then Aso got a bucket of soft, sticky beeswax. She covered the straw man with a thick coat of sticky beeswax, and when she finished, she set the man in the middle of the tomato patch. That night, as soon as everyone was sleeping, Spider crept out as usual. He was just about to pluck a big juicy tomato when he saw a man standing in the middle of his garden. Spider was so angry, he forgot all about trying to be quiet. "Who are you?" he shouted. "What are you doing in my garden?" But instead of explaining himself, the man only looked at him. "So, you won't talk, eh? Where's your tongue?" asked Spider. "Get out of my garden at once." But still the man said nothing. He only looked at Spider and stood still. "Do you think I am playing? I will teach you a lesson," screamed Spider. And with that, he hit the wax man as hard as he could with his right hand. Oof! His hand stuck fast to the beeswax. Spider could not move it, though he pulled very hard. "So," he screamed, "you are trying to be clever. I'll show you." And he hit the wax man with his left fist, and that stuck too. So Spider was stuck to the man with both hands. "What is this? You are really too much," cried Spider. "Do you know who I am? I'll teach you a lesson." And with that, he gave a mighty kick to the wax man. What do you think happened? Why, his foot stuck fast, and he could not move it. "Haven't you learned yet? Well, I'll give you another kick." And Spider kicked the wax man with his other foot, but it, too, stuck. Now Spider was stuck hand and foot to the wax man. He began to get a little frightened. Still, he tried again. "I am stronger than you," he shouted, and he gave the wax man a tight squeeze, and his stomach stuck fast to the wax man. "I will win this yet," said Spider, and he butted the wax man with his head just as hard as he could. And of course, his head stuck fast too. The next morning, Aso and her 2 sons went into the garden to see whether they had caught the thief. Imagine their surprise when they found Spider stuck to the wax man from head to foot. At once they understood everything. They pulled Spider down and took him to the chief to be judged a thief. Everyone knew who the thief was then, and the people in the village laughed at Spider and made up funny songs about him. After a time, Spider was so ashamed of himself that he ran up into the darkest corner of the ceiling to hide. And he has lived there ever since. The end.